OK, I admit it. I'm un-Australian. I've never bought an Easter bilby. It's good old-fashioned chocolate eggs for me. In fact, until a few weeks ago, I wasn't exactly sure what a bilby was. I'd certainly never met one. Now, though, that's in the past. I've met two wonderful bushies, two extraordinary Australians called Frank Manthey and Peter McRae, who've made the bilby their life's work. I can now report that these little critters are seriously cute, and they're also in serious danger of extinction. But Frank and Peter, the Bilby Brothers, are determined to save them, even if it means death to the Easter Bunny. In the vast expanse of the Channel Country in southwest Queensland, only the very tough survive. The sun has set on many an outback dream, but not all of them. For it's here, after dark, an almost mythical creature comes to life. Australia's very own Easter Bunny. The bilby is a native marsupial, so rare, so unique, and so beguiling, it can steal a grown man's heart. Just ask Frank Manthey.
Now Liz, this is something special. This is a beautiful thing called a bilby. You have a little touch of that.
Oh, look at that. Wow, she's so soft.
Out of 20 million Australians, not many ever get to see a bilby, let alone touch one, because there's so few of them left.
Did you ever think that you would fall in love with a bilby?
No. No. A rum bottle, yes, but not a bilby. No.
I sometimes think I'll settle back in Sydney.
Frank's love affair with the bilby is all due to this man, Peter McRae. They're the quintessential odd couple. Peter's a zoologist with Queensland Parks and Wildlife. Frank is a former roo shooter turned park ranger. Together they've become known as the Bilby Brothers.
Back till the droving's done.
I mean, I never thought that I'd be best mates with Frank, and he probably thought I was an idiot when I came to town. He thought he's a hippie, he lives in a tree. We'll never be mates, but he converted me and I converted him.
I'm told you introduced this man to rum and cigarettes. Is that right?
He's the best pupil I've ever had. He went to the top of the class.
Their story started 17 years ago, when Peter McRae embarked on a mission to rescue the bilby from extinction. Once populating most of Australia, the bilby was all but wiped out by feral cats, foxes and rabbits. To save them, Peter first had to find them, which meant travelling thousands of kilometres into the very centre of Australia.
To have that conservation ability or that management ability to conserve a population like that is disappearing, you have to have facts. You have to know your animal. You have to know what it's doing and what it's not doing. A nice active burrow. Every time I come out here, the first active burrow I see, it sort of makes my heart just go a little bit faster and quicker.
It seemed an impossible task, but when Frank Manthey became involved, the fate of this little animal was about to be changed forever. Frank's wife Eve had died suddenly. To help him overcome his grief, Peter asked Frank to join him on the bilby hunt.
When I first saw my first bilby in the wild, it changed my whole life.
A lot of Australians would say, well, this is a bandicoot, Frank.
They do say it now, you know.
So what was it about this little fella that made you fall in love with it?
Because the thing has withstood everything we've thrown at it, and now we've pushed it back into that last tiny little corner left in Queensland, and here it is still surviving against all the odds, and it really, really got me. I thought, wow, we'd really need a decent kick in the pants if we lose something as beautiful as that.
We had to get them into an area where there weren't foxes and cats, and to me the only way about doing that or approaching that was to build this big enclosure.
So the notion of Camp Bilby was born. A 29 square kilometre enclosure in the Currawinya National Park, just next to a town called Hungerford. If ever there was a one-pub town, it's this place, with a total population of 8 people. But it was here the Bilby Brothers project started winning over converts, like long-time resident Macca McKechnie.
I've always called him Peter Bilby. Who else can you? I think he breathes them in his beard.
Local support was one thing, but building the fence required a small fortune. And nothing like this had ever been built in a Queensland National Park before. But Frank Manthey was a determined man. Saving the Bilby became his obsession.
You're a man whose education was not great,
Grade 3,
grade 3,
a long time ago.
and there you are talking to Australia and politicians and raising all this money.
I think it's because I get into trouble with it, Liz, a bit, but I say what I think, and people understand that. There's an A and a B and a straight line in between them, and that's me. I go on that line.
With Peter capturing and breeding bilbies back at the Charleville Research Station, Frank hit the hustings to raise money, talking to school kids, to tourists, to politicians, anyone who would listen, anyone who would donate to the fund. And the cash came pouring in, $800,000 worth.
Why do you think they got on board? What was it?
Because I wanted to make it into a people project, and I wanted to say to Australia, this thing here, let's us save it. You know, you buy your panel of fence, we give you a certificate, and buy one of my caps and a stubby holder, you know, and we can turn this into a people project.
You don't think they fell in love with you, Frank?
I don't think it was me, because I swear a bit occasionally and, you know, other things.
With a swag full of money and an army of volunteers, the fence was finished in 2002. But Queensland's severe drought meant the first bilbies couldn't be released until 4 months ago.
Come on, Dawny, after 200 years, you're coming back home.
Here she goes.
Well done.
Electrified, fortified, predator-free. It sounds like Bilby paradise. Although the notion of locking up animals does go against the grain, it would seem that in this instance it's the only way to save them. 6 bilbies have already taken up residence. Now it's up to them to do what they apparently do very well, and that is breed like rabbits.
Within that fenced area of 29 square kilometres, in the breeding capacity that they've got, within a couple of years there could be 300 or 400 animals in there.
Gee, that's not bad from a start of 6.
Yeah. This is designed basically to stop cats getting in. And if cats are brave enough to get through these hot wires here and sparks don't come out of them, and they do get into that, they can climb up here, attempt to climb out under this, and it collapses on itself. So,
Do you see these fences as the only choice?
Of course, yes, I do.
And to tear down those fences would do what?
Well, once we got the fence there, we've got them inside of it. If you look at this magic place that we're on now, one day we'll get those bilbies out of there and they'll go over this park. We will have to keep the feral animal control outside the fence fairly active, controlling them. We will never get rid of the last fox in Queensland or Australia. We will never get rid of the last cat.
set of eyes up there, Frank.
Yes, you can see him there, yeah.
See on the left hand side there, we'll
Yeah,
just
yeah.
sneak up a bit, I'll get in a bit closer.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a massive problem. Australia has about 7 million foxes and as many as 20 million feral cats.
They've come into this new landscape where the animals aren't used to having a predator, a streamlined predator like that, and they've created havoc. I mean, they've just taken out species after species after species.
Of course, Peter and Frank are not alone in this battle. Welcome to the brave new world of conservation. Here at Scotia, on the South Australian-New South Wales border, the privately funded Australian Wildlife Conservancy is halfway through building the biggest feral-free enclosure in Australia. When finished, it will create a massive 120 square kilometre safe haven for endangered mammals, reptiles and birds. Saving our wildlife is too big a job for governments alone, says the AWC's boss, Atticus Fleming.
Unless we do something radical now, we're going to lose more species in the next 5 to 10 years. And that's something radical, in this case, is building a fence. And at the moment, there is no alternative if we want to save some of these small endangered mammals. And literally, some of these mammals only survive within a fenced area. So if you take that fence down, they will become extinct.
90.8 millimetres.
Drawing upon millions of dollars of donations a year, much of it from wealthy businessmen and women with a green tinge, the Australian Wildlife Conservancy now has 14 sanctuaries across Australia. At Scotia, 7 endangered species have already been released, and according to resident zoologist Joss Bentley, the bilbies are booming.
The funny thing is sometimes when you put a transmitter on them, they think something's got them by the tail. We released about 40 of them over a 12-month period, and we've got well over 100 of them at the moment, so that's a pretty high breeding rate, and certainly most of the animals you catch in here are in really good condition, and a lot of the females have pouch young, so
The bilby's looking good.
they are. I think they're having a pretty good life out here.
That they have any life at all, any chance of survival, is due largely to the work of Peter McRae, because the bilbies here originated from his breeding stock.
The source population of bilbies for Scotia was in fact the bilbies in Queensland that Peter's looking after.
So really, he is the quintessential bilby man.
He is.
He's the father.
He
well,
is,
not quite,
indeed.
but
He certainly is.
Peter McRae may not have the resources of the AWC at his disposal, but Frank Manthey thought of an ingenious way to guarantee funds for their future conservation projects. They approached Australian company Darryl Lee with a plan to kill off the Easter bunny. The company agreed to make chocolate bilbies every Easter, with part of the proceeds going into Frank and Peter's Bilby Fund.
You know that 50 cents from each one goes to the Save the Bilby Fund?
We're hoping that maybe in 10 years' time the Easter Bunny will be a thing of the past. And I often think, well, $600 million a year lost to agricultural production as a result of rabbits, and yet we worship them in chocolate form at Easter, and it's so crazy.
Shame on the family that doesn't buy a chocolate bilby
Absolutely.
at Easter.
When you walk along,
It's too early to predict whether this story will have a happy ending. But both Peter and Frank are optimistic the bilby can be saved. If nothing else, they're two friends who made a pact to put the bilby back on the map.
We've learnt so much from each other, and we'll continue to do that until the day we're not here. And I guess one of the big things is that, we can pass some of that on to lots of people, and that's what it's all about.
I feel like a group hug.
You're welcome.
Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.